Programs to curb domestic violence are often geared toward women. New tonight, some survivors are sharing their stories with men behind bars to try and help them understand the impact of their crimes. RTV6's Graham Hunter explains.
I was just ignoring those signs, and I stayed with him.
Sara Slinker's story of her relationship with Todd Brinson plays out in much the same way as many victims of domestic violence.
When Todd and I first got together, he wouldn't let me go to the grocery store alone. I loved the fact that he wanted to go with me to the grocery store.
She also ignored more serious warning signs like broken cell phones and Brinson injuring her cats, until one night Brinson, who was on parole, got drunk. Slinker asked him to leave.
He refused and picked me up, threw me across the room, and for the next 45 minutes beat me in every room of the apartment.
Slinker survived after a neighbor called police, and Brinson went back to prison. Slinker would find a mission for her life.
I was contacted by a good friend of mine who was part of a program called Bridges to Life that goes into Indiana prisons. They have victim speakers talk about the impact of crime from the victim's standpoint.
She talked to inmates like Heath Eppard, who was in prison for fraud.
It really was very, very helpful in getting me emotionally prepared and everything for my re-entry into my kids' lives.
And he saw firsthand the impact of the program on domestic violence offenders.
Their whole mindset would change throughout the class, so it was neat. It was a really neat process to see happen and see the transformation of the guys.
Last year in Indianapolis, more women were murdered than ever before. In the 17 cases where IMPD released a motive, more than half the time it was determined to be domestic in nature. Tiffany Woods with IMPD tries to get involved before domestic violence reaches that level.
Sometimes it's my job to open their eyes to it so they can understand it and get a more clear vision about the position they're in.
The hope is programs like Bridges to Life will help cut back on domestic violence cases.
My goal each time I share my story, if I can reach one inmate at each of the facilities I speak at, then God and I are doing our job.
A local victims assistant manager tells RTV6 it takes an average of 8 times before a victim will leave a violent relationship.